All right. More than likely, we're streaming, and hopefully, it catches this little intro bit. Hello, creatures, and welcome to the next iteration of Creature Chats. We're still doing it on the main channel. It is going to be moving to the secondary Creature Chats podcast channel, which is actually linked on the channel now. So please, if you're checking out the stream right now, I need you to go ahead and check out the channel, check out the links in the description, wherever I may have put it. It's Creature Chats. It's got me, microphone. Go subscribe to that so that way we can move there and start doing this content and actually not mess up the algorithm, hopefully. And we are live and checking out. Oh, there we go. There's my chat over there. And today's topic is going to be ADHD. Is it popular now? So let me give you a quick rundown of what that I feel means. I've seen a lot more people kind of talking about ADHD on social media and just general kind of talking about it and being way more open with this. And I've also noticed it feels like everyone's got ADHD now. Like it's the popular diagnosis, or if you have ADHD, it's cool and you can do new things, or you get new medication and whatever. I don't know. I think it might be something to talk about. And maybe you're sitting here thinking you've been seeing things on social media and you keep seeing a video pop up and you go, that's funny. I have those kinds of things too. But I don't have ADHD. Maybe now's your sign to start looking at and consider taking a check. They have much better tests now. You can actually get instead of just doing a fill in the ink, fill in the paper test, you can actually get EKG brain waves to check and see if you have ADHD. And if you're going down the rabbit hole of that just because I said that, you might have ADHD. Let's cut to the wide. Oh, well, actually, you have something to say, maybe?
I do. First off, let's acknowledge two things here. One, the only reason you know you have ADHD is because I told you, hey, I need you to go get tested because I'm very, very certain that you have this. And I told you that when we started probably a year or two into us dating. That would have been 4 years ago now. And you straight up said to me, hey, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think I have that. And I was like, it's not normal that I should have to run after you and tell you to put your shoes on 4 times. And you were like, I don't think so. And then you started seeing TikToks. Because from the outside looking in, it's a very different perspective.
Oh, yeah. It was, so I don't know what it is exactly, but for me, it's weird because okay, so it's probably because of where I grew up, and we didn't really have a whole lot. We didn't go to the doctor or anything. We didn't check up on things that we probably should have been checking up on. For example, my bones are definitely breaking, and I have many other problems with my body that make me feel like I'm 100. And that's probably football's fault, honestly.
Hey, you grew up in a very football-heavy area. Yeah. If that doesn't give away where you grew up, I don't think anything else ever is going to. But I do think that one of the big lies about ADHD is that people are just like, oh, people with ADHD are bad in school, and that's why we get them medicated. And I think you never hit that point, so no one ever looked into it further with you. Now, yeah. I do want to point out that I don't think people with ADHD are bad at school. I think they just learn differently, and that makes it harder in a traditional school setting.
Yeah, so definitely and also, hello, Jack. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for making it.
Is this Jack Attack?
Yeah.
I remember Jack Attack from when we did the live streams 2 years ago or something now.
Yeah, Jack's been with us for a minute. Let's see. So, yeah, I personally don't think... What is wrong with my camera angle?
I don't know. Maybe it's weird.
There we go. My coloring is way off in this one. Hey, ADHD, hello, welcome. Anyways, yeah, so I wasn't actually bad in school. Well, behaviorally, probably bad. I was kind of the class clown and wanted to get everyone's attention and all of that. Hello, welcome. I'm the class clown on YouTube now. Yeah, so as far as ADHD in school went, I actually did pretty well as far as grades and everything. So
yeah,
no one
you were
ever
a
thought
3.5 GPA or some crap, and then went into college with that same level of grade.
Yeah, I had okay, not to brag here, I did have a 4.0 in high school, but that's because I kind of cheated the system a little bit and just took extra classes, and the way the system works is broken. Other sidetracks. Hello.
But I think this is one big thing that people who have ADHD don't necessarily think about, is how their ADHD is seen from the outside in. So, as someone who is married, I live with you full time because we're married, and I've lived with you full
live with me
time.
full time like it's a
Yes.
job.
Like, okay, I just had to clean up the dopamine chase in the kitchen like less than an hour ago. It's a little bit of a job. But I will say, like, people who don't live with it full time or don't see it a lot of the time really don't think about how it shows up to others. This is going to sound very, very weird. So, as someone who lives with it, sees it, the whole nine, I have a very, very specific idea of what ADHD looks like, from the big, like, sweeps of what ADHD is all the way down to, like, the very, very small details. Whereas somebody who doesn't live with someone who has ADHD, they only see the big, like, swaths of ADHD of, like, can't focus, must do things. Whereas, like, I know, having lived with people with ADHD most of my life, and now you, it's stuff like, also these really, really tiny things are also indicators of ADHD.
It is wild, the amount of small things. So yeah, as the person with ADHD, I never would have thought about these as actual like ADHD signs, but apparently after getting medicated, I am so much easier to live with.
Yeah. You were
but
bad before, but it is easier now.
so there's actually some things I have noticed I've gotten way easier since being regularly
Yeah.
medicated. I can walk to another room and remember what I was doing, what I was going for. This morning, I hadn't taken anything yet. So I was running around trying to get the everything cleaned up, trying to make breakfast for our son, then lunch. And I would be running around from room to room trying to grab things. And even just setting up this podcast, I went downstairs and up literally like 5 times because I forgot one little thing. And I go downstairs and I get distracted because my computer's down there. So like, it's very easy to get distracted and do those things. So really quick, I do have a question. Does anyone in chat feel like they do things where they just run into a room, and I call it goldfish syndrome. Apparently it's some form of ADHD. It could be other things. But do you have things where you get easily distracted and go to another room and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, hey, my phone. Yeah, there's something on here. Like, let me know. We'll try to... Oh, I don't have chat set up to show on screen yet.
Oh, no.
Oh, well.
I will say something that I see is the ability to make a decision. So I love this thing that's on, I think it's on TikTok, and I'm very certain there's a very specific creator, and I can picture him in my mind, but I can't think of his name, where he posted about they no longer wanted to call ADHD. He felt it should be called Dave, which is basically like executive dysfunction. Because something that, again, if you don't live with it, that you don't see, is not necessarily that they don't, like, people with ADHD don't want to clean up or they don't want to do a thing. It's that they literally cannot make the decision. We, like, call it decision freeze in our house, because I've definitely seen you stare at a room and be like, I'm like, okay, do we have some freeze? What do we need to do here?
Yeah, now I want to make it very clear, I am not trying to diagnose anyone on stream.
No.
I'm not trying to do that. You really should talk to an
Mental
expert
health
about
professional.
this. Just like your regular doctor you can even talk to. They can usually get some sort of access to these things.
I also want to acknowledge something here that I don't think it's acknowledged a lot, and I don't think you'll think to acknowledge it. It is much easier for you as a guy to go in and get that diagnosis. Women, it takes years to get an ADD or ADHD diagnosis. So even if you're a woman and you're like watching this and you're like, oh, this does happen, and I do need to do these things, and I do need to go to a doctor. If your doctor's like, that's just how women are, go get a new doctor, because that's not how women are. That's like,
oh my goodness, that could be a whole separate topic on itself. Probably something that you would have more fun talking about on your podcast called
Can You Say That?
Yeah. Okay, so we do... Ooh, Summer made it. Hello. Okay, so we have a comment from Jack Attack. He does say that he,
I'm reading it
when
too,
running to another room, does definitely forget it. Usually might forget what they wanted to do in that room and get distracted by his phone.
Yep.
Or just walk back to their room. Yeah, I do that a lot. Even medicated, I still do that sometimes, but it's much better now. So, ooh, my hand's in the camera. Also, if you haven't noticed yet, there's a whole different setup going on here. We're trying to work out a couple of different camera angles to make it look a little bit better. We've got camera slightly in frame over there on the wide angle, and then I've got like this whole mess of wires hanging out over here, and then I move the camera over here so that way I could actually not bump it so much.
That doesn't
eventually,
seem to be working.
eventually this might get set up. But yeah,
Let's call out something here too. Medication. So obviously in our household, we are like a pro medication household. If you need it, go for it. Take your meds. It's good for you. It makes your brain work better for a lot of people. But you don't always have to take like the first option the doctor gives you. Sometimes the first option a doctor will give you is like I can't think of the term. I only know what we call it when we're joking, but like a stimulant medication.
oh yeah, the non-stimulant. So I have a non-stimulant. I'll be a little open about that. I very specifically did not want a stimulant ADHD medication. So
You were hard about
yeah.
that, like
So
hardcore.
to give you a little bit of clarity into that, stimulant medications are things like Ritalin, which is basically
Adderall, which is one that more
Adderall,
people
yeah.
are more commonly
Did I say
familiar.
Ritalin? I definitely meant Adderall.
Pretty sure Ritalин's also one that's like that. Again,
Yeah.
we're not doctors. We've just lived with this.
No, we're just people with a microphone and people who sometimes want to listen. So that does not make us experts. So consult your physicians and
Yep.
so on.
But just know that you can always ask, like, what are your options? It doesn't always necessarily have to be, because this was a hard line for both of us. I also am on a different kind of like process and medication and stuff like that. I've been on different ones throughout my life. But one of the things that is really hardcore is like you don't necessarily have to take option number one. You can always like sit down and be like, okay, I want to get a couple of options and make your decision. Like take charge of your health.
Yeah,
Take your meds. It's good for you.
actually, let's open that up to a question to the audience. As far as medication goes, how do you feel about it? Are you like totally fine with other people taking it, but you're a little conservative towards yourself
That was
taking
me.
it?
That
Are
was
you-
me.
Yeah.
100%.
Are you scared of medication? Are you scared of it like changing who you are? Those are all valid fears. And like let me know what your thought is in the little live chat over there. You can't see the chat that I'm pointing at in the camera, but
But
let
it's
me know
there.
what your thoughts are. Like how do you feel about other people taking it or you taking it? Like what are your views, and kind of like drop some examples in there so we can
Yeah,
actually
let's
like
talk about it.
discuss as we're going. Personally,
Oh.
we just discussed it, but like we said,
Mhm.
medication shouldn't be one of these taboo topics, which
No.
is why I feel like it's seeming more popular to talk about ADHD because it seems like such an easy one to talk
That's
about.
exactly what I was going to say. Almost verbatim is that I don't think ADHD is more popular now in the sense that it's cool to be ADHD. I think ADHD is now just a reality of the life we live with the constant like screens and computers and TV and whatever. And people are just way more willing to be open about having the conversation of like, I think it's the same with other things too. So like we've talked about this before. I know that we've touched on it in my podcast. Like I have anxiety. I have wicked anxiety. But I think now it's just okay to be having these conversations instead of feeling like ashamed or like you need to hide the fact that you went to the doctor because you lay awake at night thinking about what happens if the world blows up, because that's what happens to me. Or I can't walk into a room without remembering what I'm doing, and I can put things in my pocket and hours later find the thing I was supposed to be doing in my pocket.
Oh my goodness, let me talk about that example that just came up.
Absolutely.
So something that I do to help my ADHD, I think that's something else. Medication isn't the only solution. You have
Correct.
to also work with your own personal coping skills, really.
Love
So I think medication helps a lot. I call it my walking stick
that. Yeah.
because I think a crutch is like a bad term for it. But let's
Walking
see.
stick is exactly what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's a walking stick that helps me out. It doesn't completely take it away, but it helps. Because honestly, as much as I don't really love this little trope, ADHD kind of is a part of my personality. It really is a
is.
part of who I am. And medication doesn't take it all away. Now, what I'm saying with all of this is you have to have certain coping skills for things to help you
Yep.
blend in with the normal society. So what I do that doesn't seem very normal is I take items that I know need to go into another room, that need to go somewhere else, and I put them in my pockets.
You
So, for example, I was taking care of our son, and we were kind of doing things, and I was cleaning up after him. So he has decided that he needs a security fork. He has these little plastic forks that he carries
takes
around.
everywhere.
Yeah, he takes them everywhere. And I was cleaning up after him, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to grab this because we were in his bedroom, and I'm going to put it in my pocket so that way I can remember to take it and actually put it in the dishwasher. So So we stayed up late playing Stardew Valley because, well, we're having a lot of fun playing that game right now.
Also, drop that in the comments because I'm down to play Stardew Valley on live over on Code Creature because I just got my first gaming PC, so I'm very into it.
Tell me there's some form of ADHD without telling me you have some form of ADHD.
There's no way I wasn't gonna have ADHD and still be married to you. I can't not have it on some level.
I hope you remember this part because I do want to tangent over into how women and men differ in ADHD.
Yes.
But I also want to finish my little thing.
Absolutely, your fork.
So, surprise, it's midnight. I'm going to bed. I'm pulling stuff out of my pockets, and I find a fork. And you know what? It's sitting in my bedside drawer right now.
Yeah, it didn't come upstairs.
Legit.
It didn't make it.
No. Okay, so let's open this up to some of the comments that we got, and
I actually really like Jack's comment of he's like, yeah, I take it, but now most of my problems resolve on their own. Really don't care if anyone or if I take medication. I think it's pretty good that people take it to help alleviate their needs. Dead on, full stop. Jack killed the podcast right there. Done. You got it.
all of it resolved. That is the topic that we
Correct.
want. Honestly, so separate ADHD here. We're just coming up with more topics at hand while we are recording these.
Yeah.
A discussion that I want to have in the future is I feel like something that we're working towards as a society is instead of the go rat race that was America or just all whatever, where you have to be married, have children, start your own business by 18.
Just go.
Yeah, we'll go with that extreme. I think we're moving towards potentially a more preserving human rights or taking care of yourself. Self-care. There it is. Self-care. How did I get to that from all those other words?
I wish I had an answer for you about how your brain worked, but the extent of that has been discussed already.
Yeah. Summer commenting on one of our previous comments, they also say that they frequently forget what they're doing when they're moving between rooms.
Absolutely. And it's also very, very uncommon now to not have some form of something. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but pretty much everybody I interact with long term, maybe it's just because my group of friends, we all have to have something. I don't know. Maybe it's how you get into the Miss Creature group of friends. But all of my friends have some little piece. I have one friend who I would consider neurotypical, and that's it.
I think I might know who that one friend is.
We won't out her on this, but I have one friend who's neurotypical. One of my best friends is neurotypical, and then my other best friend is autistic as fuck. Oh, sorry.
Hopefully it's a live stream, and hopefully YouTube doesn't ding us for that. It's
sorry,
past the 8-second mark, but you know what? The channel's being deleted tomorrow, so
sorry.
All because of that one comment. Man, YouTube is cracking down on some of that. There's been a lot of videos about how people who cursed a lot in their videos are really upset about the change, but I don't know why I chose to really try and avoid cursing in general. Maybe it's just because I'm trying to be more family friendly and more
my bad, guys. I really just took that left turn.
But I feel like there is some amount of, you can just kind of take a general rule of thumb. If you feel like what you're talking about could hurt someone's feelings or is at someone's expense, maybe it's not something good to say. Maybe it's not great.
I love that you ADHD'd in the middle of our conversation about ADHD.
This is really just great examples about those things.
It is.
So I mentioned earlier, hey, I remember this. The meds must be kicking in. I wanted to talk about how male ADHD and female ADHD is very different.
Yes. So full disclosure, I am not diagnosed as ADHD. However, we are now learning that I was looked at as a child into this, and maybe I need to go talk to a doctor myself because I have other what they call female characteristics of ADHD. So initially, with most mental illnesses, unsurprisingly, they were initially only discovered and diagnosed and studied in men and how male brains form. Now, you get into some complicated stuff as people born as male and then transition later, or born as female and transition later. This is specific to the research that was done is specific to people born of male gender. So born that way, if you change later, have fun with that. I don't care. But all that research was done solely for how the male brain developed. They never studied how the female brain developed until like the late 90s, early 2000s. Now, ADHD has been called different things, but they actually started finding pieces of ADHD in, I want to say, the 80s. Someone is going to have to fact check me because I'm not totally positive about my date range, but I feel very confident. I'm not a professional, but I've done a lot of research on just for this kind of thing.
Hey, you know what? You're carrying this part of the conversation very, very
Thank
well.
you.
So you know what? You're doing a great job, even if you don't feel
Even
like
if
your
I'm
facts
not
are
right.
all, you
But
don't feel like your facts are all on there. You know what? When you say stuff, I'm just kind of like, yeah, my wife wouldn't lie to me, even if maybe
even if I'm
information is
not
coming from
right,
this
it's
place.
just my wife wouldn't lie. But
Yeah.
they didn't start studying, and this is actually true with people on the spectrum, so autism, people with ADHD, OCD. They didn't really study it in women's brains as much until more recently, in the last probably about 15, 20 years. And so they didn't know for a long time that women also have severe ADHD, and it was being diagnosed differently.
So let's pinpoint specifically something that is different between male and female ADHD.
Yes.
So I don't know. Is there something different between how I forget stuff when I'm walking to another room? Because I think that's a really good example of maybe some ADHD. Like, do you feel like is there a difference there in how I forget things to you?
So I think, and again, not a professional, I think the difference is the hyper focus. So it does seem that men with ADHD tend to hyper focus on things that chase dopamine and serotonin, and women tend to hyper focus on different things that chase it. But they tend to be more like cozy gaming, books, music, history. But as girls, we're just told that's a thing we're into.
I have one comment on that actually. Apparently, so I want to raise this as a question to chat and also kind of talk about it. So hyperfixation, that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
So do you find yourself in one specific category all the time that you could spend literal hours on?
Yes.
What is that? Is that like a game? And if it is a game, which game is
game?
it? And if it is like a task, tell me what task it is and how often are you doing it? How long are you spending time on doing it?
I would love to give an example of this.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have a perfect example for mine. You
Okay,
ready
go
for
ahead.
this? Okay, so my hyperfixation is mythology, specifically Greek mythology. And I'm not alone. I know there are thousands of people out there with this same hyperfixation. So one of the things that I know for a fact, mine is like mythology, and I read a ton. Like we've discussed this in other channels and other things, but I average about 200 books a year, and that's a slow year with a new baby. So
You do like to read. You do like that.
that is a hyperfixation. I will also say something that I didn't know that is more specific to women apparently over men is hygiene problems, which shocking, but when you think about it, makes total sense.
Interesting. All right, I want you to hold on to that because I do want to talk a little bit about my hyperfixation.
Yes, talk about your hyperfixations with an
So-
S.
Before I was medicated, I feel like this was really, really bad in how I would hyperfixate on it. But I will, hopefully I remember this part in a second. There are some times when I am medicated that I still get extra hyperfixated on stuff. So maybe that's something I need to discuss as like a balance in my medication. But for hyperfixation, I think I have a great story in how we have a kitchen dining table.
Oh my God. I love this story.
We have a kitchen dining table, and I'm going to take you way back when to the early 2020s. We were hosting Thanksgiving. So we were hosting Thanksgiving, and I was doing some work over the time. We didn't take like a week off or anything. We were just hosting for that day. So
we were hosting local family.
yeah, Miss Creature told me that I needed to rebuff the table and restain it so that way it was food safe for us to use and everything.
Yes.
So I was, I think I'm remembering more of this now. So I was
I've talked
working.
about this on my other channel too, because
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious.
It's a good story. I like it. I was working on a project. So I'm a software developer by trade, software engineer, whatever you want to call it. I make computers work and I make websites and things. Just anything that is magic behind the screen, I work on that. So I work on a lot of complicated problems a lot of times, and usually those are the ones I really enjoy. I love the ones that get my brain thinking. But I when I am too deep into a problem, let's like an algorithm or a complex situation that needs to really take several moving pieces and make them all hit the same point. Like train A is leaving train B station and yada, yada, yada. I got to figure out when those hit.
Refocus into the story here.
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm getting into a problem like that, I actually solve the problem quicker by stepping away from it. So maybe I step away and go write it out on a whiteboard, or maybe I go play a game, or maybe I go upstairs and take a look at the table that hasn't been done yet, and something clicks in my head. Hey, Miss Creature made a comment that she would like it if I would clean this up and make it better.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing anything important right now. I'm definitely not working on my previous job because this is not the company that I'm currently working at.
This is back in 2020. You did not work for the same company. I feel the need to tell whoever is watching that so that they don't fire you later.
my company job chasing, and all that is
Also
another
dopamine.
chase the dopamine. We could go on for a long time about these things, and I will be getting to these comments here in a second, but I just want to finish the story. So I went and grabbed like my sanding tools and stain and saws and everything that I needed to pull this table apart and stain it and finish it and make it beautiful. So I did that, and I was working on it, doing all these things, getting it all cleaned up, and it was all outside on our deck, and it was actually getting a little cold outside.
We live in a snowy environment during the winter.
Yeah. So I was cleaning it up about maybe more than halfway through this sand down and stain project. Something clicked in my head for this previous problem that I was working on, because I guess the ADHD did this little roller coaster off to the side and solved the problem. And I was like, oh, I have to leave now. I have to leave this project in pieces. We don't have a kitchen table anymore. It's in pieces out on the deck. So I go downstairs.
And half stained is something I really need the audience to understand. He had started staining half of it and had left the other half. He just took off. I love this story.
Yeah, not my best moment, but I did fix the problem, and it was a really fun solution that I came up with, and I felt it was pretty good, and I got plenty of praise at work for solving this problem that everyone else was running into issues with.
No praise at home though, because only half my kitchen table was stained.
Did that table get finished like a week later or something?
No, I made you do it 2 days later. Because it was Wednesday when you took it apart, the Wednesday before, not like right before Thanksgiving, but the Wednesday a week before. And I said, this finishes on Friday. And you said, okay. And I said, at 10 o'clock on Friday, it gets finished. And you said, okay. And so you were out there at 9:45 finishing it as fast as you could. So I wasn't mad.
Yeah, it was dark, cold, chilly. I was out there trying to finish it up because, well,
we were supposed to host Thanksgiving in less than 7 days.
Yeah, I had mistimed my time permanence window. That's another thing that
time permanence is huge when it comes to ADHD.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a second. But Jack Attack had I'm reading comments as well because I'm also on the stream, and I have to say his is a while in time. So I hyperfixate a lot on Duolingo. It just gets to a point where the competition on Duolingo gets too intense, and that fuels my motivation to learn more languages. I could not imagine a harder hyperfixation. I can't learn languages to save my life.
Okay, I did this too. I did a little bit of hyperfixation on Duolingo as well, and I agree. That little competition meter for just simply signing in and learning something for a minute, it is dopamine rich. Like just signing in and seeing that you're beating Karen by like 5,000 points is the biggest dopamine. It's like, oh yes, I can speak the language so much better than you. You don't even compare, Karen. And it's even better when they start going back and forth and you're like, no, I need this first place, and I'm gonna sign in every day and I'm gonna spend 5 hours learning this language. I don't remember anything that I learned from Duolingo though.
You were learning like Japanese too, so it wasn't an easy language to start with. You did not start with a language like Spanish was really common where you grew up. It's common where we live here. And you're like, no, I'm going to choose a language that nobody I know speaks. Nobody in the area speaks regularly. The only way I would speak this language regularly is if I travel halfway across the world.
Well, hold on. Let me correct you there.
What?
I watched some anime, so I'd
That's
be
true.
listening to it a whole lot.
That was your whole reason.
Yeah. I mean, talking about chasing the dopamine, though, I haven't watched anime in like half a year because I've been so busy with YouTube and stuff.
Oh.
And like I can't even really catch up on a whole bunch of shows I want to watch on Netflix and all of that.
We have an ongoing list and it never ends. But
Yeah.
time permanence, though. Let's
Ooh,
talk
time
about
permanence,
time
yeah.
permanence, though. Because you
All right,
have
so,
none.
Hold on. We have to extend this as a question to chat because I think this is a great topic. So
Talk about it, chat.
yeah. Okay. So how do we word this? How do you think we need to word this?
Do you know what time it is right now? And if you do you know exactly how it feels to wait an hour? Because if you don't, you may need to go to the doctor.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So
Do you understand
let's
how
reword-
long tasks take? Because that's the other one that you have bad.
Okay. Here's a really good example, and I kind of want y'all to think about this. If I am told to sit down for exactly 30 seconds and don't look at my watch, I will get up in usually around 15 to 20 seconds.
It's 15. We've timed it.
Yeah, exactly 15 seconds. So if you time yourself right now, sit down, don't look at a clock or anything, and try to sit for exactly 30 seconds. At what point do you get up thinking it's 30 seconds? Do you get up early? Do you get up late? Drop the numbers in chat. This is a super easy experiment for you to do.
Mhm.
Again, it doesn't mean you have ADHD. Some people are just bad at time. I'm
True.
really bad at time, though, with ADHD.
You
That
have
is a whole
no
separate thing.
concept of how long anything takes. Like,
Let's talk
I-
about how I make dinner.
let's talk about how you make dinner, man. So, for some clarity, I am a full-time stay-at-home mom and also run a business part-time because this is how my life works now. So, normally during the week, I am fully in charge of making dinner start to finish. On average, this takes me 35 minutes to an hour.
Now, let me say this. That's because you don't like waiting very long for my dinners.
Why? How long does it take for you to make dinner?
Like 10 seconds.
It does not take you 10 seconds, you dirty liar.
Okay, all right. So it probably takes me around an hour to 2 hours. An hour if I'm quick.
Yeah.
And this comes down to the divergent dopamine chase sometimes. In lunch, I just made lunch. I
Oh my
just
God.
made lunch for our son
You sure did.
and us. So you say, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I say, let's make a gourmet toasted peanut butter on homemade bread with
Peach compote.
handmade peach jam.
Yes.
And I'm like, I can do this in 30 minutes. It's fine. It's
By
fine.
the way, I would love to throw some more context in here. I went downstairs to our bedroom and my beauty room to get ready for the stream so that I was ready to go live. That was the whole point. That was the whole reason I left you alone. And I said, hey, it should only take you like 10 minutes to feed our child. Make us something. By the way, the bread was already made. It was bread I made like Monday.
He was fed in like a minute because I gave him like a slice of peanut butter bread and he was totally happy with it. But yeah.
Uh-huh. But how many dishes did lunch take?
we don't need to talk about that.
How many dishes did lunch take? How long did it take to stop and actually make? Let's talk about that.
Look, I actually lost count at some point.
So as the person who just cleaned it up, it took you
yeah.
like 15 dishes to make peanut butter and jelly.
Okay, I make dinner and lunch and any meal. Like, what is this chef on the Muppets?
I think it's the Swedish chef.
The Swedish chef.
Yes, you
I
do.
make dinner like that. But my favorite thing is when I have finished making dinner and you get to taste it and you lean over to me and say,
This just happened, actually.
yeah.
So maybe a week ago, we do a thing where we do a themed meal for a Disney movie. And we'd made poutine because we were watching Turning Red, which is based in Canada. And so we made poutine. And we invited my parents. And in true code creature fashion, you really came back. I texted my parents, hey, this is how long he says dinner is going to be. And my mom and my dad both went, so we're not going to show up till 10 minutes before that because that's never right. And we're like, full disclosure, accurate. Do that. wait. They waited, showed it up 10 minutes before they were supposed to for actual dinner to be made. It still took another 35 minutes for dinner to be done.
Yeah.
Always. I'm in charge of Thanksgiving because of that. Like, you can't do more than just very specific things for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and usually I make them ahead of time, and they're actually like timed things that
They
I've
sure
looked
are.
up, and like they go without my working in them. This actually goes into my personal work as well. So I think this is something that all developers kind of struggle with, is actually giving a good time estimate. But when I am sitting down and actually hyperfixating on my job and what I'm working on, you gave me this. You gave me a little dial
Sure did.
timer.
Sure did.
I literally set this every time that I'm working on it, especially if I have a meeting coming up, because before I got this timer, I would be 30 minutes into the meeting before I ever looked up at a clock. Yeah.
So,
Pretty
do you
bad. And
know
I do this.
why I
Hold
bought
on,
that?
hold on. I do this because I would go, oh yeah, I got like 5 minutes. I can do this fine. And
It's never.
30 minutes would pass, and then I'd jump into the meeting, and everybody would be like, hey, you showed up. And I'd go, yeah, I was stuck coding. I was stuck working. So usually it's not that big of a problem, but you know what? They don't love that I show up late.
So, I actually bought that because there is a TikToker I really, really like. I think the TikTok name is Domestic Blisters or Casey Davis. I don't know which one she's under right now. She has children with ADHD and she has ADHD. So they bought a massive visual timer for their house. And at that point I was like, that's it. That's what we're going to do. And now everybody in our house has a designated color coordinated timer to their area. Everyone.
You have one.
I do.
I have one. Baby boy has one.
He does.
Both of yours are red. I'm sensing that I am the minority with loving lime green.
Mine is pink, not red.
Oh yeah,
It matches my office.
Yeah.
Because I have a full pink office.
Mm-hmm. So I like Jack's little comment.
I was just
here.
looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah, he says sitting down and waiting 30 seconds is actually quite easy for him. He
duck.
imagines a clock ticking in his head. Sometimes he gets it pretty close within a couple of seconds, but if he were to do it for a minute, it would not work too well. And I love his little tidbit of, and then I get bored and tired of it, and then it wouldn't work anymore.
Yep.
I get that. I would definitely also do that. There's an anime called Dr. Stone. He literally spent like thousands of years counting seconds so that way he could wake up at the right time.
You would have
I'm
gone
over here
mad.
like, yeah, that makes sense. Although I would go practically insane just trying to count the seconds. And you know what? His whole plan was he'd wake up in the spring so that way he wouldn't be stuck in the winter without any preparations and stuff. And I would definitely wake up in the winter going, oh, it's the wrong time. It's the wrong year. Whoopsie. Yeah. Oh.
It is an ongoing thing, I think, is just discovering these new little facets that where we were like, oh, this is a personality trait. And then we're like, you got medicated and we're like, oh, it's not a personality trait. That turns out that is a symptom of this problem. That one was hard. I will say, once you got medicated, what did make my life easier is I can usually get you to get your shoes on. Getting everybody to leave the house, though, on time is a feat from the gods. Like, there's not a way for me to do that ever.
Yeah, and I'm trying really hard to like keep track of all the time and stuff, especially when I'm trying to get our son, me, all dressed and ready to go.
Yes.
And then you'll sit up here for a while just totally ready to go and just only have to put shoes on because that's how distracted we can get sometimes. Now, I do some things efficiently, like changing his butt or getting through all that because, well, I don't want to be stuck in there with the dirty diapers for very long. So
no, that you have
that's the
down
efficient
pat.
thing.
A change of butt situation is a 30-second situation. You are quick. Once he has crawled out of his room, though, and he's doing something you've never seen before, that's it. We have lost the entire day to whatever this kiddo is doing. Because you're like, did you see he stands now? I was like, yes, you've seen him stand. No, I haven't. This is new.
Ooh, hold on.
What?
I have a topic to
Okay.
add to this one that I think would be really like a
okay.
fun little discussion. So we've talked about this starting and finishing energy. I don't remember where you said you got it from, but
I think I made it up with a boss I had at one of my social media jobs.
Yeah, you call my energy the starting energy because
Yes.
I don't know if it's the ADHD or
It
like
is.
some form of autism or something, but I cannot sit on a topic that you are talking about as an idea concept. So I have to go through and discuss how we will bring it to fruition and make it a whole actual reality.
Yes.
We talk, for example, the podcast that we're doing right now. I'm looking at the wrong camera. This podcast was just a discussion of things, and your podcast was also a discussion of how I like listening. The way that you and your mom go back and forth is, it was an idea that y'all talked about for a while, and I was like, hey, why don't we just actually make this a thing? Why don't you start a business? Why don't I start a business? Why don't we put this on YouTube? Why don't we make content? Like,
Do you know I'm a full-time content creator now because of how the rest of my life has like changed? My whole job now is just getting on camera somewhere. That sounds so bad. That's not what I mean. Like, we do the podcast. I'm not a cam girl. We do the podcast here. I have a podcast with my mom. I now make the content for Code Creature. Like, content. I'm a full-time content creator. And I don't even know how long this is going to last, because eventually when the dopamine dies down, it's a good thing y'all are out there. Because if you weren't, this would have died a long time ago.
yeah, actually being able to interact with everyone does actually give me the consistent dopamine to continue doing this.
Yeah.
I did the TikTok thing for a minute, and that was a cool, fun set of dopamine. And then I was like, I'll move to YouTube. And then I think I started YouTube around the time I had just gotten medicated. Like, I just started my medication.
No. False.
No, it's not.
I know exactly when you got medicated, because it literally changed the entire dynamic of our relationship. So you started, I'm pretty sure Code Creature at least started as a conceptual idea in 2019 into 2020. You didn't get medicated till after we were married, so that would have been in 2021.
Huh.
Yeah, you haven't been medicated very long.
Another discussion on that whole time permanence thing.
Yeah, I think and it's very weird raising kids like that, like alongside with it, because our child is now a toddler-esque age, and in your head, he's still like an infant.
Yeah. No, it's weird because we saw pictures of him and when he was first born, and that was a potato. That was a potato baby.
Sure was.
And now he is up running around and actually making decisions for himself. Like,
Sure is.
deciding that he wants snacks. So he's going to go get the snacks out of the snack drawer and go grab the things. This kid's only like a year and something. So I thought they were still potatoes at that age, and I didn't understand that.
They're not potatoes anymore.
Oh my goodness.
And in fact,
Ooh.
this child will fight you for a potato. Like,
Yeah.
That
He
is my
loves a
baby.
potato.
But you have like raising a child alongside that, very, very strange, because you have no time permanence for when we need to leave for like doctor's appointments. Even medicated, you still have a hard time with like, okay, we have to leave at 10 a.m. to be there at the doctor at 10:15. And it'll be like 10:08, and then you're like, I'm ready to go. I'm like, we've been waiting for 30 minutes. You need to get in the car. Like, there's been whole ass things where I've been like, get in the car or I'm leaving you here because we need to leave. That has happened.
Yeah, but then like I'm a fantastic driver and managed to get to where we need to be. That said it
Absolutely
would be
not.
15 minutes away in like 5 minutes.
That's
Don't
not.
tell the local police authorities that.
Do not do that. Also, this is why we're very limited. People are like, why don't you guys go out and drive more often? Why don't you go for a drive? And it's like, because it's not a relaxing activity for my family.
It really isn't. I make it a race. I love beating the GPS time. It is not a
A few
relaxing,
years
we'll
ago,
go
we went
around
to
for a minute.
Seattle. We drove to Seattle from where we live. And it was supposed to be a very specific, like, long day. And I gave you the time, and you went, okay, I bet I can beat it. I was like, this means we're not going to stop. This is no stop, straight through. It's going to be, like, I don't remember, like 12, 13 hours. And you were like, I bet I can get us there in 10 and a half. Now, upsettingly, you did get us there in 11, so we did shave like an hour to 2 hours off. But also, now we have like an infant, so you can't be doing that. But it's stuff like that. You have absolutely like no time permanence. And I don't know if this is like what it's called, but you have no conversation permanence either.
What do you mean? What do you mean
So,
no conversation?
Conversation permanence. So when you tell me, oh yeah, we were just talking about that, that could either mean an hour ago or literally 1 year ago. And there is no in between. There's like no conversation permanence either.
You know what? sometimes this whole time permanence and not being able to actually know how much time has passed and see some of it pass a little bit quicker than expected does work out in my favor though, because for example, I ordered a new VR headset a couple of months ago now at this point, and it's shipping hopefully within the month. Yay. Because oh man, it's I'm glad this time has passed relatively quickly, so that way I'm not just sitting here looking at my phone waiting to see if something has shipped. So that works out in my favor when I'm waiting for stuff to get delivered. But then you also run into that whole, like, Amazon does the 2-day shipping on everything, and I'm really spoiled about that. And some things get shipped overnight. So then I hyperfixate on how much time has passed, and then it's like time is moving so slowly. If you stare at a clock and try to like wait for the time to pass, it will feel like you are time traveling at the snail's pace. Like you have slowed down time. Like superpowers.
Are you all right? Because if you're doing that, I don't think you're all right. I do have one question for you, though, as a flip. So I am comparatively relatively neurotypical versus your neurodivergent, or at least my neurodivergence is very, very different. I am curious, how is it to be the other way? How is it being a neurotypical person married to a neurodivergent person on the other side? Do you notice? Do you notice my brain works different? Are you just exhausted? Do you notice the effort that comes through our house? Like stuff like that?
Let me talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, you got some expectations
I do.
that I keep thinking are a little wild. Like, for example,
like
why do you ever have dinner done in like less than an hour or something? It's interesting thinking about it. So I don't think the world is averagely
neurotypical.
Neurotypical. There we go. Hey, I did it. I don't think the world is average neurotypical, because I think everyone's got something that's a little bit different. And the fact that the world is kind of like there's this one perfect standard that we should all work towards, sure, but everyone's got something a little bit different about them. We're not all the same. We don't some of these things I feel like are kind of built on experience. Even like I feel like some amount of our ADHD could be heightened by like the amount of tech and dopamine hits that we get. So living with someone who is we'll go with neurotypical, air quotes, because I don't think you're neurotypical at all.
Okay, more neurotypical than you.
Yeah. You have a lot of expectations for things that you want done in a timely manner. You have this whole, I remember when we were first dating, I would get the little dopamine drive chase, and then you would want to go and spend money on it because you thought that would be something that I'd want to do for actual hours and stuff. And I only want to do it for a couple of hours instead of a couple of weeks.
That was a mistake I made that we quickly like rectified, because there were a lot of things we were like, I want to do this. And we would be like, okay, so you want a sewing machine? Let's go buy you a good sewing machine so you can sew forever. And then that sewing machine has now been up in a box for like a year and a half. I'm now pulling it out to actually use it, to try to learn how to use it. But
yeah, I think that was a really fun from my side to see how you would see me get excited about a certain thing and be like, okay, so we're going to invest money into this new hobby because it's something we're going to want to spend time on, right? No, not really. I'm just going to spend an afternoon on it so that way I can be a rocket scientist for this afternoon and develop the rocket fuel and things. But tomorrow I want to be a brewster. Brewista. I want to make coffee. I want to make cold brew. I want to make all the
barista.
Barista? Okay.
Barista.
Hey, look at that. Apparently, the English language has never been a dopamine chase for me, so that's a different
I'm trying to figure out what the hell you were trying to say.
Ooh.
But as a whole, does it feel weird, or does it feel like a superpower? Because sometimes I have to wonder from like the other perspective, my ability to make us leave on time must feel like a superpower sometimes.
That's
honestly,
kind of funny. I remember when I was in college, we saw some things about some esports, whatever, was talking about this little thing that he took to help focus and stuff. And I was like, man, that's really cool. That would be awesome to be able to do that, to be able to focus on a task that you're doing. I don't know how I didn't know I had ADHD, but
I don't know either.
yeah. Straight up. Oh man, I can really feel that we did 2 recordings this time because I can't get enough energy drink in me to
To like rock
continue
in.
the focus and bleh.
On that note, maybe we should wrap for the afternoon.
I so oh my goodness, I didn't even walk through a doorway and I had a topic that I wanted to talk about and I
know.
can't remember it.
So let's walk you back. This is actually a very great example of a common occurrence in our house.
Oh
So
yeah.
you were talking about college. Someone
Mhm.
was taking it. They were able to focus on a task. You were like, "Hey, how did
No,
you
the
do
roller coaster
that?"
train is far
Is it
too
gone?
long,
It's
and
too gone?
we won't make it all the way back. I do enjoy though talking about. I call it wild roller coaster rides instead of like shower thoughts because I feel like that's a proper example. And I have
Yes.
sunk further and further into this couch. I would like to get up just a little bit. I will be talking about or thinking about just some random topic like I wonder how they created the first mirrors, and then we will bounce off of that.
Obsidian.
No. Let's talk about how I just thought about how they created the first mirrors.
Obsidian.
I'm just looking around, thinking about things, and looking at all of our appliances, or not appliances. We're in the living room. Looking at all of our
You
furniture
mean
and stuff.
accessories? Which isn't even the right
Accessories.
word. It's decor, but
Yeah, decor.
because this is actually like our living room. That's one of the things that I like people. I know that somebody like messaged or commented about like this was kind of a weird background. It's because it's our actual living room. This is just where we live. But first off, accessory is the word you were probably trying to say. Second, it's not called that. It's called decor. Third, original mirrors were made out of obsidian.
That's another chasing the dopamine that I'll have to do later to figure out what. What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do I mean?
Obsidian. They were made out of obsidian?
A lot of mirrors were back in the day, especially in like ancient Greece. Because what is obsidian made out of? Volcanic. They're made from volcanoes. It's volcanic rock. They're shiny by nature.
Okay.
Ta-da!
I'll just take that.
My wife doesn't lie to me. Eventually, we're going to test the boundaries of that, but not today.
All right. I think I want to wrap things up a little bit here. We're close to the hour mark. So, you know what? I'm going to. Man, we just did like a pre-recorded one of these, and now I'm realizing that because we're live, I can't really cut this part out where I'm trying to figure out how we're
I
going
have
to end the
things
video.
to say. Don't you worry.
You got
So,
things?
I do have things. So, as you probably saw from the Discord chat, we are moving on to Twitter. So, please go and like at the Code Creature. The Twitter name can be found both in the description of this video when it goes up after it's been alive and in the Discord channel. So, go like that. Start us up and making us expand in the community.
Oh, I'm yeah, that's great. I'm also remembering my little outro bit that I wanted to talk about for the drop some comments about how you feel these discussions need to go. Really,
Yeah.
So the whole point of this podcast is ADHD seems like it's popular to talk about because it's the easy one to talk about, and everyone feels like they have some form of ADHD. How does everyone feel about this whole? We're becoming more open about mental health and mental things like ADHD, anxiety. I think it's a good direction to be moving in. I think we should be very open about these discussions. It should be like, even though it feels a little uncomfortable to talk about these, it doesn't really change who you are. You are who you are. So I feel like you shouldn't be worried to talk about if you have ADHD, anxiety, I don't know, autism and stuff. Like we talk about a lot of these things in our family about all of the whole variety spectrum of things that we want to like discuss because we want to be very open with these. So I think the thing that we want to walk away from this is don't be worried about being different. Like no one is the atypical normal that everyone wants you to be. Don't be worried if you're a little different. And also like medication isn't a bad taboo thing to talk about. And just because you get prescribed one medication, it's not the go all one answer. It's not what you have to choose.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Also, Taylor Molson, I think, is the comedian that we watch, and I referenced last time. Go watch her special. One of the things that she pointed out is that basically if the people who don't care about you, like who don't want you to take your medicine, they don't care if you live or die. So maybe like screw those people a little.
Yeah, I agree. And I
100%.
love Jack's little exit comment here. He thinks being more open about mental health is a very good thing. A good way to get feelings out
And not
and to
just
not just explode. I love that. I agree
He's correct.
entirely.
Jack is honest. Jack,
Yeah.
twice in one podcast, man. Twice in one.
Yeah, I think your mental health is important. Keeps him focused on that. And, well, I hope to see all of you creatures in the next one. That's how we're going to end this live stream. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And we're going to continue trying to do these Saturday at 2 p.m. live streams. And maybe moving over to the live stream Creature Chats channel. It is linked in the main channel, so go check that out. Go click the link, go subscribe to it, please. We want to move over there to not mess up the algorithm for the main channel. So if you haven't yet, go check out my main channel page. Click on the Creature Chats icon down in the bottom so you can go to that and get subscribed, so that way we can start doing live streams there.
Absolutely.
And just hang out and have fun. I hope to see all of you creatures in the next live stream video, whatever it may be, or in Discord, because I've been hanging out in there a little bit more. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and that's it.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, where'd my mouse go?